So, welcome to Montgomery Park's meeting about Damascus Recreational Park and athletic field lighting. Thank you so much for coming. Apologize for the folks in the room that were in the dark together, but that is for your benefit, so you can see the slides. Maybe during the Q&A, we'll pop the lights on. Just wanted to start with a little housekeeping. My name is Darren Fluchet. I'm the Division Chief for Park Planning and Stewardship at Montgomery Parks. And I have a number of colleagues with me this evening, and they will be introduced by Christy momentarily. This is a hybrid meeting. So for the number of people who are in the room, there is maybe that many again online. 8. We have eight friends with us online. So we're gonna do this hybrid. So we're gonna do our best to always be talking into the microphone. So when we do get to question and answer, we'll make sure that you all have access to the microphone so that everyone at home can hear both questions and answers. If you are online, please use the Zoom question and answer feature for questions and comments. And what we'll do is we'll just ping back and forth between people in the room and people at home. So as I mentioned, if you're in person, we'll pass the microphone around or likely have people come up in a line. We are really looking forward to your feedback on this project, or as I'm about to explain, projects. And so we encourage you to use the QR code or visit our open town hall on our website to fill out a very brief survey and share it with your friends. So you all are here, we want to hear from you, but we want to hear from everybody else as well. So please do share that survey with your friends and family and interested parties. It'll be open until the middle of December. So about this meeting. So this is one meeting that we're having about one park, about lighting, but it's going to have two components because we're thinking through this project in kind of two phases. So first, we're going to present about lighting project in Damascus Rec Park of 2 diamond fields, what we call fields 1 and 2. And this is a project that you'll hear about how it's been requested by the community and then vetted pretty seriously by park staff, and we've secured some funding for it. So that project is pretty far along, but this is an opportunity to hear from you all. Is that a good idea, bad idea? Are there any questions, concerns, details, anything we can take into account as we design and progress the project forward? Or worst case scenario, this is a terrible project, don't do it. Which case we can cross that bridge when we come to it. But that's kind of the feedback that we're looking for from that project, which is one that the Parks Department is comfortable moving forward with. And this is just an opportunity to discuss it with you all and get your initial feedback. The second project is not as far along, and it's lighting rectangular fields. And we're kind of hosting this conversation in response to requests that we've gotten from leagues and players to provide more lighting in this area for people that are playing soccer and football and so forth. So this is a project that we haven't secured funding for. We're still trying to vet and really understand all the issues. There's some logistical challenges that we can talk through, but we want to get a sense of, how important is this project to the community before we go a lot further in planning it out and looking at it. So is that clear on kind of 2 parts, 2 projects, 1 park, and 2 conversations? So we look forward to having that dialogue tonight. And with that, unless I've forgotten to say anything, I'm going to hand it over to Christy Kabadi, our site planning supervisor.
Thanks, everyone. I got to make this a lot shorter. My name's Christy Kabadi. I'm site planning trails supervisor at Parks. And I'm going to just go ahead and open our meeting, let you know what we're going to talk about today. And before I get started, thank you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate your time. It's important to us to hear from you. And we know that weeknights are really busy and we all have a lot going on, but we're glad you're here and look forward to chatting with you. So tonight I'm going to introduce you to our project team. We're going to tell you a little bit about lighting and how we think about lighting at parks. We want to talk about some recent lighting upgrades that have happened already at the Damascus Rec Park. And then, as Darren talked about, we're going to go into the projects and discussion together. And our meeting tonight, we have booked until 8:30, so we'll try to, cut it off at that point. But you're always welcome to get back in touch with us if we, can't finish our discussion completely tonight. So with that, I'm going to introduce the project team. You already met Darren. He's our Park Planning and Stewardship Division Chief. We also have with us tonight Carl Weber, who's our Athletic Field Coordinator, and he'll be talking to you a little bit about our athletic field program. Galen Evans will also be talking to you tonight, and he's our Athletic Fields Project Manager. Josh Arnett is sitting over here facilitating conversation online. He's Engineering Supervisor. Melanie Huggins is not in the room, but she is online, I believe. She's Permitting Information Supervisor. Haviz Adedojo is here tonight. He's our Park Permits Manager. So if you get permits for the park, he's likely the person you'll be talking to. Mike Little, our Northern Parks Division Chief, is in the room. David Farner, Park Manager. And Melissa Chotner and Michelle Ramirez, who are our Public Relations Specialists. Got a big crew helping with this one. So I know you're all aware, but just to orient us, this map is showing Damascus Rec Park, kind of between Damascus and Clarksburg, off of Ridge Road, but Kings Valley is where the main entries of the park are. And just to let you know that we also have two rec parks nearby, Ovid Hazen Wells and Ridge Road Rec Park south of Clarksburg. This is Damascus Rec Park with this dogleg shape. It is 284 acres in size, which is a really big park. But the part we're going to talk about tonight, of course, is the park that's outlined in the blue dotted line, where most of the active rec facilities are against Kings Valley Road. So as you know, of course, we've got athletic fields and courts. We have a picnic pavilion and playground in this area. Okay, so why are we talking about lighting? One of the main things is our park planning guidance. So we have a document that kind of directs and guides our park work into the future. And that is called PROS, Park Recreation Open Space Plan. So we updated this plan in 2022. And one of the things that we worked on as part of the plan was to increase park usage through lighting. And so it's one of the things that we're investigating as we move parks into the future. And of course, Damascus Rec Park is a recreational park. That means that physical activity and active recreation are the main emphasis of this park type. So we are looking at increasing peak permitting capacity by 700 hours, therefore increasing physical activity in the park just by lighting the athletic fields. And as Darren mentioned also, we've had a pretty strong community request for this park, for lighting the park, both the diamond and rectangular fields. And so again, I'll just say your input's really important. We heard you, we're here tonight to talk about it, and we'll look forward to the continued conversation. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Carl to talk about the need for lighting. We actually do a lot of data work to figure out what our levels of service are, what kind of needs there are county-wide, and Carl's going to tell you about lighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Before I get too far into this slide, I'm just going to talk about our inventory in general. We have 314 athletic fields in Montgomery County parks. Some of them are overlays, classic softball field with an overlay of a rectangle in the outfield. So I like to consider that we can only permit 280 fields at one time. Of course, that's when the sun's up. When the sun goes down, we can only permit 26. So let me repeat that. The sun's up, we're permitting 280. Sun goes down, we're permitting 26. So that's less than 10% of our inventory. So on this slide is a picture of all of our regional recreational parks with the inclusion of one local park, which is Blair Local Park. These are our parks where we light our athletic fields. So as you look at this map, you can see each regional recreational park and 4 types of amenities we'd like to have in regional recreational parks. So you can see lighting, you can see fences for game-only fields, you can see irrigation that we use to help the fields recover, and then you can see dugouts. So this map gives you a good idea of our lighting across the county. And as you can tell, as we get to the northern part of the county, our lighting falls a little short. So here's a map of 3 regional recreational parks. We have Ridge Road, which actually is lit. There's 4 of the 5 fields there lit. We have Openhazen Wells. They don't have any fields lit. And then we have Damascus, where we have the basketball and the tennis courts lit. So as you can see, there's 10 plus fields that are not lit in the Upper County and our regional recreational parks. So we consider these areas of opportunity. We took that data, we evaluated the fields. Here's our 2002 permitted data. You can see field 1 got over 500 hours of use. That's heavily, and you probably can't see the numbers, so I'll just say them, but field 1 got over 500 hours of use. That's the baseball field. Field 2 got over 400 hours of use. So those are very heavily used fields. We're helping with lighting. We could even get more additional permits out there and increase that usage of those fields. Field 3 is another softball field. It got over 400 hours of use. And then we see the need for the rectangles. They're up there above 300, pushing 400. Primarily field number 5, field number 8, and then field 6 and 7 are a little bit lower, but there are also smaller fields. And like Christy said, when we light a field, we increase the hours of available capacity by 700 hours per year. We call it peak hours because we're considering anything after 5 to when the lights go off is what we consider during the weekday is a peak hour, and then weekends all day. And then what does lighting a field look like? So we only light athletic fields when they're permitted. So the park manager will get a schedule. They'll see when the field's used at night. They'll program the lights just for those times. For regional recreational fields that are considered maintained at that level or lighted, they're permitted from April 1st to November 30th. Fields may be permitted up until 11 o'clock p.m. So below is a little chart that shows kind of when lights come on. So April and September, right around 7 o'clock. It's based on sunset. Lights typically come on. May through August, it's lighter longer. So 8 o'clock's normally when we turn them on. October through November, obviously it's dark out now. So they're turned on a little bit earlier. 5 o'clock, some cases probably right now, we're turning them on at 6. And then as soon as daylight savings time hits, which is in a week and a half, it'll be dark by 5 o'clock. And then of course, the fields are closed December, January, February, March, so there'll be no lighting during those periods of time. And I'm going to turn it over to Galen Evans.
All right, thank you, Carl. All right, I'm going to give a brief overview of some of the new light fixtures that we're using, that we will be using, especially at Damascus, for lighting the athletic fields. It's been about 6 years since Montgomery Parks lit an athletic field. That was with the Latonia Recreational Park when it was built. In the past 5-6 years, there have been a lot of really big advancements in athletic field lighting. We've switched over to some LED lights, which are a lot more efficient. They also, we've gone to LED lights as opposed to the metal halide bulbs, which were at Latonia and all of our other facilities. They take like 15-20 minutes to warm up. They use a lot of electricity. So with the newer lights, we're really excited to be using these newer technologies. We're also working with the Dark Skies International organization to ensure that all of our installations provide the least obtrusive lighting on our recreational level fields. The goal of the Dark Skies is to light the field of play, but minimize disturbance to the neighbors and wildlife. in the woods and surrounding the fields. Some of the key criteria for dark skies certification are that LED lights must be used. There's minimal light moving vertically above the light pole, and light is targeted so that glare and spillage to the surrounding areas will be greatly reduced. The goals for this are achieved during design. We work with dark skies to use computer-generated models that predict light spillage and glare levels. They certify those designs, and then we put that into production. After installation, they come out and assist with administering a light survey. They have some state-of-the-art light meters that can monitor how much light is bleeding off the field. Then they will give a certification after that to show that we're really doing our best to have some really efficient lighting on our fields. They take their readings on the field of play and then also 150 feet from the field of play, and they have some certain levels where you can't have as much light spilling out up to 150 feet away from the field. I have an example here. This picture is from Montgomery Blair High School. Some lights, LED lights were recently installed on their track field, and you can see in the picture that the light is very targeted, just on the field of play. You're not getting too much outside. That 150-foot level is really accurate. Once you get outside of there, it's pretty dark. Here's another example of some Musco lighting. Lighting some diamond fields. Again, you can just see on the outside, the glare is very minimal and the light spillage is very minimal. On the right side of the screen here, you can see how those light fixtures, how they look. They have, the light is pointed straight down and the lights are hooded so that light doesn't go straight up into the air. You see that a lot with the older fixtures. If you're driving up to a field, you kind of see a globe that looks like over the field. With these lights, it's very pointed, just on the field of play. Pass it back over to Christy. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Galen. So as you know, it's been mentioned tonight, the tennis courts and basketball courts at Damascus are lit. And we've done a couple of different upgrades to those courts. The surfacing of the tennis courts was redone in the spring of 2022. And then a year later, this past summer and spring, we upgraded the light fixtures on those courts to LED fixtures. These fixtures conserve energy, minimize light spillage. The court lighting is on demand here, meaning that if somebody wants to play, they press a button or turn a knob and the lights turn on. So next, we're actually going to get to the meat of the projects. So project number one, as Darren described, is a discrete project for lighting the diamond field. So we, at Parks, we pick certain projects and try to get some state funding for these projects. This is one of them. So we got some state bond bill funding sponsored by Senator Zucker and Delegate Kaiser. And we got $225,000 to go towards this project from state bond bill money, which is a really great thing. And we appreciate the sponsorship of Senator and Delegate. So the project. So basically, the idea of the project is to light the diamond fields. Field 1 is the 90-foot baseball diamond. Field 2, we could play baseball or softball on the field. It's a softball-sized field. And that is the primary purpose of the project. But when we come in to do a project like this, we also have additional site work that we often do as part of it. So for this project, we're looking at ball field turf and drainage upgrades to increase the playability of the fields and improve the playability of the fields. As part of the project, we would renovate the parking lot and light the parking lot and provide more accessible spaces in the parking lot, as well as improve the pathways to the field and the dugout benches, which would include accessible pathways to both fields and the dugout benches and lighting of the pathway. So that's the scope of this project number one. This is the near-term project. We have funding for this project. And at this point, we want to just kind of stop and talk about, oh, I'm sorry. Just kidding. I want to tell you a little bit about our anticipated schedule and cost before we start talking about it. So we are hoping we could complete this project by spring of 2025 for the summer season. We're going to start by gathering community input, start tonight, and we'll have that open town hall open until December 15th. There, I think, is a flyer floating around with a QR code, so you can fill that out tonight, or you can do it at home after the meeting. Please do go to the open town hall and fill out that survey. It will help us a lot as we conceptualize both of these projects. After we collect the public input and think about the project a little bit deeper, we will go into detailed design and permitting, which takes approximately 9 months to a year, and then construction, which again, hopefully deliver the project in the spring of 2025. We are anticipating that the cost could be about $1.4 million for this project, which I know is probably astonishing when you're thinking about it, but there's a lot that goes into these projects with all the site work and the lighting as well. So again, we have that $225,000 in bond bill funding, and then the remainder of the project would be made up through our CIP funding. CIP stands for Capital Improvements Program. And that's general park funding in lots of different buckets. Okay, so now we're at the discussion phase, and I'm going to hand it over to Darren to facilitate. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Christy. All right, so I just counted. It looks like we have about 25 people in the room, and we have 35 online. So we're going to bounce back and forth. I'm going to try to just come to you all. It's small, it's an intimate enough gathering. I think I'm coming to you. I'm going to hang on to the mic, and then I'm going to bring it back to whoever is the most qualified to answer your question. Again, we want to make sure we're always using the mic for our own benefit in the room, but also everybody online. So I guess raise your hand if you have a question about the Diamond Field Project 1. I'll start over here.
So my first question is that if these go to lights, do they have the same restrictions as Ridge Road?
Who can answer that? Carl.
So yeah, if they go to lights, they'll be a game-only field, and they will have the same restrictions as Ridge Road.
We go back to permanent bases at those 1 and 2 as Ridge Road is, and will they have lining every day that you are permitted?
Yeah, we would definitely go to. They would be managed at the regional recreational level. They will have permanent bases, and they'll be lined and dragged every day. That there's permits.
That's sort of the trade-off between access and. I think we will come back to you. Yep.
All right, question online. Is the end time for lighting negotiable? The house is adjacent to fields 1 and 2 and gets a good amount of noise from them and would request a 10 p.m. cutoff.
All right, we definitely wanted to hear from, in fact, that was going to be one of my questions. I will answer that question, but in the room, show of hands if you are a neighbor adjacent to the park, like across the street from the park. Okay, and I'm going to ask everybody online to just kind of identify themselves as they're an adjacent neighbor, because we for sure want to get that kind of feedback. Appreciate that about the timing. I think the answer, does anyone want to venture and answer the question? The request was for a 10 or 10:30. Yeah, so I'm going to answer for Carl. So we will take that feedback into account. We appreciate it. It's the kind of feedback we want from this conversation, and we will take that under advisement. We have not made a decision yet. What was the time they were? They said 10. So we can take that under advisement. So appreciate that. Do you have somebody else online, or should I go back to the room? Okay. You want to squeeze your last question?
So my last questions are, so the rate of rent will go back up, and also you'll lose your historical use.
The rate will go up. I don't know about historical use. That may be something we could talk about internally. Hubby's, Do you have any precedent?
Historical use stays in place. The fee just goes up, and also the maintenance standards goes up. That's it.
Did everybody hear what he said? Abis, can you repeat that?
Historical allocation stays in place for the field. The fees goes up, and also with the maintenance standard also go up. That's it.
Practice space will no longer be able to use those fields. So we're essentially losing a lot of space during the week.
These would become game fields. Yeah. There,
I said, so a lot of our association is Damascus Sports Association. We use the diamonds every day of the week during the spring season specifically, but a lot during the fall. So we would really be losing a lot of practice space because we can only use it for games. That's a lot. I mean, we're using it every day.
so that's a trade-off. That's the kind of thing we want input on, right? Is it worth gaining the time during the weeknight on days like this to more playable hours at the cost of practice?
As far as the county is concerned, what's the practical difference between a practice and a game?
As far as the county is concerned, what's the practical? Parks. Okay. Yep.
So practice-only fields are uncontrolled, so they don't have any fences. They don't get daily maintenance. There's a lot less inputs into those fields, where the game-only fields are fenced. They're getting daily maintenance for diamonds, so they're getting dragged and lined every day. They're just kept at a higher rate. They do additional fertilizations and additional aerations.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Wait for the mic.
Are we just talking about a differential in cost and not actual use? So for instance, if someone were to pay the game day rate, but practice on it, would anyone care?
We currently have a policy that the regional recreational game day fields are only used for game day games currently. So it's a policy that we have.
My next question. Didn't hear that.
Do scrimmages count as games?
No. Yeah.
How does one differentiate between a scrimmage and an actual game?
Abiz, do you have an answer to this?
So for game only, we need players in uniforms, referees in uniforms, umpires in uniforms. So there's no code. It can be coachable. They have to be uniform with referees, paid referees on site.
So the question I had was that on the slide, it said that completion would be spring 2025 and it's going to start in fall 2024. Does that mean during that time those fields will be unavailable for use?
So we haven't gone into detailed construction planning yet. So there may be some periods where those fields won't be in use, primarily probably during the parking lot repavement. I think installing lights really doesn't affect the field use. But Galen, do you have any additional comments? I'll bring you the mic.
Installing the lights should not affect the field. We have discussed internally about renovating the fields, and we would work on timing with that to minimize any impact to your schedules. But we would like to renovate those fields to improve the drainage and the playability as well as part of the project.
Do you guys have control over the fields that are at Damascus Rec? Like, does Park and Recreation, do you guys maintain those fields? Because they're terrible. So the thought would be if the rec center, Damascus Rec Center who maintains those? Because there's 2 fields there. So if these are unavailable, it would be great to have those used.
If they were maintained.
They're terrible. So who's in charge of those?
That's the recreation department.
So you guys.
No, we're Department of Parks. So
You're absolutely right. Our fields aren't maintained as well as the Parks Department. Thank you. My name is Adrian Clutter. I'm a division chief with Montgomery County Recreation. And I'm here today generally just to listen because I think this is a great project. And I'm we need more opportunities for lighting, but I also understand that it's a very complex and expensive issue. So I want to, first of all, take an opportunity to thank the Parks Department because I know they've worked really hard. They're studying this project and they have the benefits of a really top of the line planning department. And so at Damascus Recreation Center, we don't have a very large budget at all to maintain the field, as you can tell. We do our best to keep it mowed on a regular basis. We have a contract with a county contractor that takes care of basic functions like cutting the grass. If you notice, we don't even spend money on things that are community center that I would like to have, like mulch and other opportunities. I will say that we are also subject to some of the same principles and practices of being good stewards of the environment. So the Dark Skies Initiative that would take place if we were to look into considering lighting. It would need to be part of our CIP project, just as they're mentioning here. We have a CIP project in the county government, and there are a lot of things in order in that CIP project that would maybe you'd have to look at where the priorities fall. So, for example, in Damascus, we are getting a refurbishment of our senior center, and that's coming up in the CIP project. So when it comes to lighting, we'd have to look at if we wanted to get it in the CIP project, and it's important to the community, which I know it is. I encourage that type of feedback at budget sessions to say, hey, we want more amenities at our recreation center. That's something, the type of community advocacy and support that we like to hear, because generally the county wants to hear what the constituents want, not necessarily what the recreation department wants. And so you can voice, have community voice and say what you want there, but there would also need to be a study done to see if it's applicable for that space. This particular project, one of the reasons I'm here, this may and does seem to be a pretty suitable space for lighting. We also go through community use of public facilities for our permitting process. So a lot of the policies and things would not change as well. So it's a lot of very similar to what the Parks Department is looking into.
Adrian, thank you so much. I did not anticipate or mean to put you on the spot, but thank you for that. You are awesome. So we have a question online, and I think what we're going to do after this question, while you guys keep mulling on some of the pros and cons that you guys are clearly wrestling with, we'll go on talk about the second project, and then at the end we can revisit this discussion as well. Sound good?
All right, so question online is regarding, okay, is anyone going to manage / enforce these lighting schedules in person and the clearing of the park after the games? And then they say basketball and tennis courts are bad enough with activity late into the night.
So the lights will be programmed by the park manager for the park, for the permit only. And then after that, the lights will go off. They may have like a 15-minute grace period, but after that, the lights will go off after their game. The patrolling of the parking lot would be a park police issue. That could be something we could ask for direct patrol, but it would be best just to call park police when there's issues to help that enforcement.
All right, so I think we'll hand it back. Thank you, everybody. And again, this is not the end of the conversation. We can at the end, when we talk about Project 2, once we have a nice discussion about Project 2, we can come back and get any additional thoughts on Project 1. And And then, of course, please do use the survey.
Okay, thanks so much, everybody. Great questions. Can I get this back in here? Sorry. Okay, we'll move on to project 2, the rectangle fields. So as Darren mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, this is a project that we're still exploring feasibility for. We heard a lot of community interest in lighting these fields for various sports, and we are looking into it right now. So again, your feedback's really important about these, and will help us as we make decisions about these fields and whether to light them and how to light them. So based on the permitting data that we have, we are looking at lighting fields 5 and 8. Let me just back up a little bit. Field 5 is a large rectangular field. Fields 6, 7, and 8 are smaller size and more prone for youth sports. So, that's a consideration as well. So we're looking at lighting field 5 and field 8 right now because they are currently the most permitted fields. We're interested also in looking at field 6 and 7 and figuring out whether it's a good idea to combine those two fields to make a second large field, or whether it's more important to sports groups to have 2 smaller fields for youth play. So that's a question that we'll be asking in our survey. You can tell us tonight what you think as well, but you see the question mark on the plan, that's something that we're considering. And then the next question for field 6 and 7 is then do we light them? So like the Diamond Field project, we would do other improvements to this part of the park as part of this project. We would be improving and lighting the parking lots, providing accessible pathways and lighting the pathways to the fields. And then as you can see in the plan, to the north of field 5 and field 6, the houses are pretty close, so we'd be looking at planting a tree buffer north of the fields and also north of the parking area adjacent to field 5 to give the adjacent homeowners a little bit of a buffer. Then there's additional site work that we would probably have to do as part of this project, which would be lighting the access road from Kings Valley Road all the way into the fields, and potentially fencing the lighted fields. Carl's just discussing. We would consider irrigation as part of these improvements. And I think you probably all know that access road gets really narrow over the stream. And we would be looking at potentially widening the access road if that's a possibility. So we are in the middle of the investigation of all these things, and we're thinking about it now. And we're coming to really, really early in the project because there are a lot of considerations here. All the things I just said, but because of the kind of large scope of the site work and the lighting, we know the cost here is going to be probably quite high. We have really long utility runs to get lighting to these fields and water if we do irrigation. We know there are neighboring homes nearby that may be affected by the light and the noise. The accessible pathways to the fields could be quite difficult because of significant grade changes from the parking lot. Whoa, everything just got really dark here. But we have significant grade changes from the parking lots up to the fields and then down to field 8. So that's something that we're going to be considering and looking at. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, fencing the fields, again, to make them the higher quality game-only fields that we've been talking about. So this anticipated schedule and costs is really sort of up in the air still, but this is what we're thinking about potentially. We are going to be gathering community input on the same schedule as Project 1. So you have until December 15th to fill out this survey, tell all your neighbors and friends. We will be sort of at the same time and through the spring, next spring, we'll be looking at feasibility scope and cost to see if this is even a reality for our Parks Department. And then in the spring, summer of 2024, so this spring, summer coming up, we'll be making a project recommendation. And I think we can probably stick to this schedule depending on the community feedback. And one of then the really big determinants of this project is cost. If the diamond fields that are really close to the road, relatively smaller scope, are quite expensive, then we know this one's going to be close to double. So we're looking at 2.1, 2.5 million. That's a sort of order of magnitude cost that we're considering as we're looking at this project. And I think as Darren mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we don't have funding for this project. So that's something we would be looking to figure out. We could go back to the state to ask for some bond bill money. We are working on a CIP ask right now. So we don't know exactly what it will be, but wanted to just be frank with you about what we're dealing with. And with that, I think we can have discussion again, and we'll let Darren did such a good job first time. We'll let him keep going. Please feel free to talk about either project.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to go to the phones.
Yeah, we got a question online said, why were fields 3 and 4 not considered, either on their own or instead of fields 1 and 2?
So fields 1 and 2 were considered primarily because of baseball. We have only like 22 baseball fields in the county compared to 130, maybe more softball fields in the county. So we know we have a deficiency in baseball. So we focused on those first. We also looked at possibly expanding one of those softball fields into a baseball field, but there is grade challenges. There's a lot of slopes on the back end, so that wasn't very cost effective and feasible. I know the back end of one goes into the road, so we did look at that. Unfortunately, it was not very feasible.
Don't go anywhere, Carl. We're good on the online. Anybody in the room want to comment on project 2? Yeah.
I don't really have a question. I just have information I want to share with everyone here. I'm James Harden. I'm the current commissioner for DSA football. So the last year we were actually allowed to have portable lighting on the rec center field was 2019. At one time we did have an arrangement to have portable lighting on the rec center fields. In 2019 was the last year we had lights there. Of course, we had the COVID year after that, 2020, where my kids who were playing football had to practice in a different county. Came back in 2021, we were told we were no longer allowed to have portable lighting on the recreation center fields. From that point on, our program was forced to practice in what essentially was backyards. Some of our families volunteered space for our kids to practice. Of course, there's a lot of safety issues, traffic congestion, a lot of those considerations that was not ideal for the kids. In July of 2022, I started reaching out to the county council members to help me find a solution for the kids in my program. So I did work with them. I did work with MCPS, who did provide a solution to allow portable lighting on the MCPS fields, assuming we get permission from the administration at those schools. We have since been proceeding with that plan for our practices. Last year, our total cost for portable lighting for our program was $12,610. Our program is all privately funded. We depend on registration costs and donations for all of our funding. This year, we had 230 registered players with an additional 55 registered volunteers. All our volunteers are vetted and background checked. And this year, we also gave out $7,700 in scholarship funds for underprivileged youth in the Damascus community. There is a large need for football in Damascus, as well as fields to practice on and play games on. Right now, we depend on the high school for our game field. This year has been especially frustrating with the weather we've had. We've been kicked off the field for 3 out of 4 of our home games. If there's lighting on the rectangle fields, that will allow us to have a space for our own home games. We won't have to depend on the high school or the high cost to rent that field. I have to check, but I believe the cost to rent the high school stadium is around $2,500 for the day. So very expensive to rent that stadium for the day. But it is the only place in Damascus that is suitable for football games in a city with 230 kids playing football every year.
Thank you for the comment.
I got two questions on here. First one, I think it's pretty straightforward. The rectangle fields, will they still be closed during the winter months? I'm assuming that means if they're lit. I can go ahead and answer that. That does not.
Yeah, the only fields that are open from December to March 15th are synthetic fields. So yes, they would be closed during those times. So they'd be closed from December to March 15th. And then if they're regional recreational fields, they'll be closed all the way till April 1st.
All right, and the other question is, are there concerns with lighting the park since it is on a rural road that isn't itself lit?
Yeah, so the question was, are we concerned about people driving to games that the rural road is not lit? I mean, we assume that people do drive on those roads, you know, around the clock. So that wouldn't change, and so I guess we're not overly concerned about that.
I'd like to further James' comment. My name is Eric Myers. I'm the current treasurer of the Damascus Sports Association. We serve approximately 1,000 families representing 1,600 children in this community. We offer 7 youth sports programs, including football, baseball, softball, basketball, lacrosse, cheers, ponds, and wrestling. Our sports program also largely feeds the championship Damascus High School varsity teams with football, softball, baseball, etc. We spend more than $100,000 annually on field permits to this county, and we are advocating for permanent lights for both the rectangular football and lacrosse and diamond-shaped baseball and softball fields. As previously mentioned, early spring and late fall practices get cut short as dusk falls earlier in these times. It's unsafe to play after dark. Additionally, DSA sports are largely intramural with other Montgomery County communities such as Clarksburg, Olney, and Poolesville. Thus, the enhanced utility would indirectly benefit the larger community as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Josh, phones?
All right. If the rectangle fields are lit, will they also not be allowed practices either?
Yes, when we light them, we move them to the regional recreational standard. They'd have fences for access control, and they would not be allowed for practices.
And there's an online comment that DSA football needs support from Parks and Rec to support the youth in Damascus. This feeds into an amazing high school program. These square fields will support DSA.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
So the problem that I have with this is you said that only 10% of county fields are lit. And of that 10%, about 90% of it is all half the county and down. And that there's literally one field within 10 square miles of Damascus that's got the potential to be a lacrosse or football field that has lights on it that is already controlled by other programs in this county. So essentially it is not usable by DSA sports in any way, shape, or form because it's accounted for almost all year long. And we have way too many kids that depend on this program to play football, and only having 10% of the 10% of the large picture being lit and not even being in our area is why we need the rectangular fields lit as well as the baseball field. That percentage needs to climb, especially in the north end of the county, as the picture states, because it's clearly there's a discrepancy in the bottom half of the county having not nearly as many kids by population playing football as we do, but yet they have access to multiple lighted fields and we have none.
Appreciate the comment. I will flag for everybody that there's a shortage of lighted fields throughout the county. Yeah.
So it's my understanding that you guys were saying that the CIP is an improvement program that you guys would be requesting additional money for. Is that correct? What I heard the lady say? So it's my understanding that the Youth Football League has not ever had permanent lights. And at the beginning of the slideshow, we saw the tennis courts and the basketball courts got money from the CIP for improvement, which to me, we've never had permanent. So there's no improvement for us. Like we're just trying to get to baseline. We're just trying to get to any type of permanent lighting like the other sports or like the other groups have the opportunity for. So I think it's great that they have the improvement money coming to them. Like all sports should have that opportunity. So I guess the Youth Football League is just asking for the same thing, that just trying to get to that baseline of having some type of permanent lighting to have the same opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for the comment. CIP, Capital Improvement Program, is just the term for basically all of our capital, meaning long-term permanent improvements, as opposed to operating, paying for staff and things like that. So projects like lighting, like construction of new fields, like renovations of existing fields, like everything we do, we improve a nature center or build a new nature center, that's all competing for the same CIP funding. And so that the word improvement is just part of the name. What it really means is where are we spending our money? Yeah. Anybody online, Josh?
Yeah. So this continues on the practice versus games only. The question is asking or is stating there's a significant need for lighting on fields for practice.
Yeah, I appreciate the continued comments, and I would also suggest you fill out the online survey of the open town hall so we can review all the comments. But our current athletic field use policy prohibits practice on regional recreational parks, and those are the only parks that we currently light.
And can you just clarify, the reason for that policy is a lack of capacity for game?
Right. So, well, yeah. So we're trying to preserve the field for game only use, and we only have a limited number of those game only fields in the county. So, although we have a lot of local park fields, or basically our regional recreational parks are, I think we have maybe 65 of them throughout the county of the 314.
So I have a question just about the lighting in general, I guess. This idea of a big, beautiful, expensive project is awesome, but what we're really needing desperately in Damascus is not just a place for these kids to play games, but a place for our 10 teams and 250 kids to practice every day. So we are having to rent these portable lights, find a place that will allow us to have them. First it was the rec center, then they kicked us out, then now it's MCPS, and who knows what will happen there. It's touch and go every year. Is there a reason why we can't bring those lights onto this beautiful field at the, there's other programs that we're aware of there that have some of their personal belongings and sheds and things like that on the property. So it doesn't seem like that would be the reason, but we really need a place that's a football field with lights at night that's also not for games, desperately. And we pay for the lights, like you said, it's $12,000 just this season.
So thank you for the comment. Our policy does not allow for portable lights currently. There are several issues we find with portable lights. User groups have to pull them onto the field and drop them off, which could cause field damage. They leave them at the site, which could be a liability issue. They're generated run, so they can be noisy, they can emit emissions, and then they're not exactly as directed as we'd like with our dark sky compliant lights. So those are currently our issues with portable lights. I can tell you I saw a electric portable light that I was excited about the other day, which may start to change that conversation. But that's currently where we stand. And Darren, you seem like you have to add on to that.
Well, so yeah, that answer was very good and consistent with our policy, but I just want to add that my division is the Park Planning and Stewardship Division. So one of the questions we get when we light is, what are the effects on wildlife? The reason why we're so invested and committed to dark sky initiative compliant lights is it minimizes impacts on neighbors, minimizes impacts on wildlife, and mobile lights cannot be dark sky compliant because we just can't guarantee where they're targeted. So that's a challenge for us. Carl's been looking at technology. There's still things to navigate therein. But I promised a question back here.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Fonts. I'm the Damascus Lacrosse Association Commissioner. We have 7 teams or so between Saturday and Sundays that play lacrosse at the Damascus Rec Center, which we appreciate being able to use the field. But I'm sorry, I forgot your name already. But what'd you say? The fields just aren't kept, and I know the funding is low. They're barely mowed. It's just a really bad scene up there. In terms of my main concern is safety. Our children are going out there on the field, and there's obviously 4-wheelers going around there every single week. I had my husband even come up and try to stamp out because we have teams coming up, kids are twisting their ankles. You know, they're just not kept. And again, not your fault, just saying the funding, I understand, but we need a place that's safe for our children. As you guys said, you know, they're even just for games to have that daily grooming and making sure that our kids have a safe place to play. Like, we have other teams coming and the coach is like, what is this? We're like, okay, well, we're doing the best that we can, but we just really need to think about the safety of our kids, and they deserve to have a field that, you know, provides that.
Thank you. Glad to have lacrosse represented in this conversation.
This is just a general comment, feedback. I keep hearing you all say, you know, the impact to this people group or the impact to animals and things like that. But what we are collectively asking for and advocating for and basically begging the county for is the impact that these decisions you all are making will have on our youth. And to me, the impact on children and their future is way more important than a deer that's going to get hit running down Kings Valley Road. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but it's just facts. We're talking about children who are humans, who can go play a sport, or they can go home and get in trouble. And it's easy to sit at a desk and look at everything on paper, but what we are advocating for are real children. They're our children. They're the children of our community that need a place to go after school. And studies upon studies have shown that sports is a healthy outlet for children. And we're not just talking about lighting a field because it feels good to us, or we want our sports to win state championships. We're talking about impacting the youth of our community, and that's our purpose. And so I just wanted to make sure that that point was heard, because the point that I keep hearing is that there's an impact, there's an impact, there's an impact. And the point we are trying to make is that these decisions that we're looking at on a slide have a direct impact on our children. And I just wanted to make sure that that was communicated clearly to everybody in this room, because that's why we exist. I serve on the board with Damascus Sports Association. It's why I give up my time every month to meet with this group of people. It's a purpose that's far greater than ourselves, our own children. It's the next generation. And I don't want for that to get lost in the discussion of what we're having here and what this is all for. Sports has a direct impact on children. And I can say that as there's coaches in this room, and there are children who are on their teams and their lives are improved because they come to sports several times a week. There are children who have a single parent and they come to sports and they are given support and guidance and help in their lives. And I've seen that up close and personal.
It's why we make sacrifices to coach. It's why we show up every week for our kids. So I just, like I said before, I want to make sure that that's heard and that's understood, because it is more than just money on paper. This is something that's very personal to us, and it's something that we're passionate about, the safety, health of our children. So thank you.
Heard. Thank you. Okay. Couple of questions from online. With the upcoming renovation of the high school and possibly needing to displace the football program there, would they be able to play on this field? And they state this could be an incentive for one of the possible renovation plans.
Yeah, so Josh said, with the possible renovation to the high school, would they be able to play on this field? Was it a specific program, Josh, or just everybody? The football program. So not 100% sure what requirements the football teams will need. Obviously, we do work closely with MCPS, so they might be asking to permit that, but we won't know until they actually ask us for permits.
Another question of, if the square fields get approved, when will they be able to see it done? So, I don't know if Christy wants to talk about that.
Thanks. Did everybody hear the question? Okay. So we'd be looking at making some recommendations again this spring, and then we'll have to figure out how to pay for it if we decide to move forward with it. And then just in general, our permitting and detailed design process takes about a year. And then construction can take anywhere from 9 months to a year, depending on the scope. So, you know, I guess from the approval, from the funding approval, we'd probably be looking at 1.5 to 2 years before that was delivered. Fair answer?
So you're looking at 4 to 5 years. That's the case.
Yeah. Somebody in the audience said, so you'd be looking at that 4 to 5 year window. And that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, coming to you. I guess I'm taking a long way.
What is the particular policy for lighted fields being game only? And well, yeah, and why? But I mean, if you could cite the policy or direct me to it.
So basically all of our regional recreational parks are game only fields, and those are the only fields that we currently have lit. Other than Blair Local Park, that's a special case that's treated as a regional recreational park because of all the amenities.
What is the rationale for those being?
Because, well, A, they're lit, there are higher costs, and then there are more maintenance that goes into those fields. There are higher end fields. So we put more investment into them so that we have a high end field for games, and then all of our other fields are for practice that are our lower maintenance standards.
What is the particular policy? Like what is the code?
Where's it written down?
Yeah, is the athletic field use policy? It should be online on our permits.
Is that a law, like a county regulation law? Like how is that established, that policy?
So that's our athletic field use policy. That's our policy that we created. I believe we created about 10 years ago. We are in the process of starting to review that policy, and that may be one of the topics that we look at. Actually, we'll look at the whole thing, but that may be one of the hot topics we look at. But right now, it was created about 10 years ago. We are now starting to look at that process. That process could take up to 2 years. But there are some other things in there that we will also be reviewing.
So when we talk about our lead fields, I want you guys to be to know something very well. Correct me if I'm wrong. We only have 6 lit rectangular fields in our inventory, not in Down County. 2 are Latonia, 1 are Ridge Road. That's it. When it comes to natural turf field, that's lit. For rectangular fields, just 3. And the rest are synthetic fields. We don't have that much. So now going back to the policy, we know, I feel your pain. You need to practice on a practice field that has lights, yes. We need to look at our policy and see if we can put light on local park fields at local standard. We're not there yet, we're behind. So we know, I know the pain, because in the fall it gets dark at 5 p.m. You cannot practice. It's reality. It's reality. We don't have any local park fields with lights. We don't have any right now. Cabin John number 7, there's a garage. They use it as is, but we don't have any right now, so we're behind on that. So the policy that we have right now is 10 years old, like Carl said, but we are looking at updating the policy to see how we can better accommodate all user groups in all these fields, local and regional recreation fields.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think part of this question comes from hearing what football is saying and knowing what they do, and also knowing I'm a softball coach, and Eric, who's the treasurer, is one of my assistant coaches. It just sounds to me like everyone in DSA is ready and willing to collaborate with the county to help, if there's a need to help, look into changing those policies. So as you guys review those policies, we would love to be a part of that review and offer solutions as well. Because I mean, I think the fact that they put up $12K for portable lights and are willing to do that kind of thing, it just shows a willingness, a leaning forward from the people in DSA and in Damascus area to participate in the process. So I think if we could be a part of the review, we might have good solutions. You know, me and Coach are out dragging and raking fields and taking care of fields to make sure that they're game worthy and game ready. And it's just small things that we do. But if there are bigger things we can do, or it sounds like they do a lot, football, from what I'm hearing, you know, if we could be a part of that review process, maybe we'll have ideas that can contribute to your concerns, and you guys can meet our concerns.
Let me get this first. Absolutely. So the reason why it's going to take up to 2 years is it'll be several stages. So the first stage is we're going to review it. We're going to do some benchmarking with some other agencies. We're going to do some research on you know, what's the best foot moving forward. And then we're going to go out to public comment. And that's when we'll bring in the leagues, ask for their opinions, and then get all that feedback. And then we'll make recommendations, which will then have to be vetted by the planning board. So it's going to be a long process, but it will be a process, and we definitely will ask for league input and definitely want to be partners in that. Okay, excellent.
That's why Carl said it's going to be a 2-year process. Just going to do a quick time check. This is, so yeah, we said this was going to go till 8:30. So, Josh, okay. Any other?
I just want to make a quick comment. I
Yeah.
don't want to make it sound like I thank you guys for doing all of this and even getting the ball rolling on something like this. Obviously, we're finally here at this point having this conversation. So thank you. I didn't want everything to be like we want to take your heads off. Right?
Appreciate that. And you guys are,
Like she said, we're passionate about our kids, but thank you for even opening the door to this discussion.
appreciate that comment. This has been a super civil conversation. So appreciate that too. Yeah, just waving. Just waving. Awesome. So I do want to say a few things, but
so about the funding, with all the home building that's going on in Damascus, was slated with Kings Valley getting like 150 homes. Does Park and Rec sort of reach out to these builders and ask for a donation for money, whatever, to make these improvements? Because if you're going to be adding 150 homes right across the street from the park's going to get a lot of use coming down the road. So I was just wondering if you guys reach out to, other than just the state, other organizations for funding.
yeah, we don't crowdsource in that particular way. What the best thing to do is to speak with one voice really strongly, come to our budget hearings, tell, continue to communicate to us how important this project is, and that's, it's a priorities question, right? This is not the only room we're in where people say we have a lot of needs, right? It's everywhere we go because we do. The county has a lot of needs, and so it's a question of allocating resources. So I think that's kind of the answer. We would find a way to pay for it if this was the optimum project. Let me just say a few other things, and Aaron, if you want to talk, I'm happy to hand you the mic, but when we talk about some of the pros and cons and constraints of the second project, we have to weigh lighting those rectangles and the cost with potentially looking for other opportunities, other rectangles in regional and rec facilities. And I think if you go back to, I want to get the park right, but Ovid Hazen Wells might be an easier opportunity for us. It might just not be as costly, right? So we have to weigh those kind of things. I think that map illustrates the need for lighting up county. Like I said, it's not just an up county thing. We need part of the reason we have the policy we do is because we have more desire for games than we have game quality fields, right? So when we hear your request, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the possibilities for lighting within reach and figure out what makes the most sense. If we can light a rectangle field for less than the $2.5 million project, we have to take that into account, even though it doesn't probably, not what you always want to hear, but it would be maybe an improvement over what we have now, which is a whole lot of unlit fields, right? So those are the kind of things we have to, as an agency that has a finite budget, we have to make the most responsible decisions we can. That has to be on the table for us. But we're here to hear from you all, to hear the magnitude of the need and the degree to which, we and everybody else hears kind of a really clear statement of need. That's not unhelpful. I have to say, I heard a lot of reluctance about lighting because of the impact on practice fields. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, and especially when I ask you guys to, when you fill out the survey, which I'm sure you all will, help us understand the trade-off between we would be upgrading the fields, lighting the fields, so increasing capacity in those two, I'm talking about the two diamonds right now. We'd be upgrading the quality. We would be updating the maintenance standard, so more like a daily maintenance, which is what our regional and rec fields get. But we would be fencing them and making them game only. So we need to understand that if that trade-off is acceptable and if y'all are enthusiastic about it, because it is still $1 million investment. So that was what I have to say in terms of listening. I wasn't getting a clear signal.
So part of the issue, specifically with baseball and softball fields, is that there's so many programs in the Damascus area that are all fighting for permits for the same fields. So the fields are already limited in terms of what's available in the first place and what's accessible for practices, and during that time of the day. And there's just not a lot of options. There's more programs playing baseball and softball than there are fields available. So we're all fighting over the same fields. So that's where a lot of the issue becomes in. So when we talk about lighting the fields, the initial thought was that we would expand the use of those fields, allow for later practices, have multiple teams practicing on one night, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So that doesn't solve the issue with field space in general, especially in the Damascus area with so many different organizations fighting for the same field space. And it's going to be even worse when the high school gets remodeled, depending on which model they go with, because they're going to lose their field space and they're going to get priority for permits, which means our youth program will be having less fields to fight everyone else for. So there's a larger problem in terms of actual numbers of fields that are accessible to the Damascus community and also the surrounding programs that are near us as well.
Totally understand. And like I said, that's not just Damascus. We have capacity problems everywhere. It's just this question of, do we light these, which would have the ramifications that it would have. But we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. Yeah.
What you mean by fenced in, because Damascus and Ovid Hazen all have fences. So I don't know what you mean by fenced.
So yeah, that is a clear distinction that they do currently have fences. When they go to regional rec, because they're just being cut once a week and they're only getting once a week maintenance for the fields. So because not all the fields are fenced, but when they go to regional recreational, they'll actually be locked unless there's permits. And then we'll be opening them up for permits and then locking them again at the end. When we developed some of these regional recreational parks, they did not get completely built out to the regional recreational park standards. So there's a few of these mixed regional recreational parks where there's some, like, in Damascus, the backfields are open completely. There's no, so there's just walk-off use whenever.
Aaron, do you want to say anything?
Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Crowd. I'm Chief of Staff for, I'll go up here, District 7 County Council Member Don Lukey. That is your district representative in county government. And first things first, I just want to thank you all for being here. And your dedication doesn't go unnoticed. And it's a really cool thing you're doing and trying to do for Damascus and for this community. Yeah, there's a lot of energy here. I think we've also heard some details that we need to work out, maybe the biggest one being funding. And so that's a big part of what my boss's role is. So please feel free to come up and chat after this meeting, reach out afterward, because ultimately the county executive and the council are the ones who revise and approve the county CIP you've heard about. There is this state funding part. Our partners in the state legislature can help with that and already have a little bit with the baseball, softball fields. So there's an element there too, but there's a lot of work to do. And I know it's something Dawn is focused on and it's a priority for her. So again, thanks for being here. Thanks Parks for being here. Thanks Adrian for being here. And yeah, happy to chat.
Thank you for being here.
Has the baseball fields at Ovenhazen Wells been considered for lighting instead of Damascus?
Yeah, so we considered them, and we thought Damascus would be better served to serve the Damascus community. Ovenhazen Wells is a little bit closer to the Ridge Road, where they already have at least one lit baseball field. So we were trying to get something a little bit closer to Damascus.
But ultimately, you've heard a lot about capacity issues, and we would love to turn in our regional and rec parks. We'd love to turn all those off lights to on, because we know there's significant need. I'm also hearing a lot of need for more local parks and practice fields, but we take that as a challenge that we're going to work through.
Hi, I'm Donna Pfeiffer. I'm the field coordinator for Clarksburg Baseball, and Jen is the rec commissioner for Clarksburg Baseball and Softball. And I just want to say that we want to support our neighbors, our Damascus neighbors, and we totally understand and totally get what they're saying and their concerns, and just want to support them.
Thank you. Well, we don't need to keep you here any longer unless anybody has any final comments. I guess we can say goodnight to the folks online and we'll give it to Christy. Yeah.
Just one final comment. You've been hearing a lot about this survey. So there are flyers flying around with the QR code, but you can also access it through our website. If you go to the Damascus Rec Park page on our website. And in addition, please spread the word to your neighbors, your friends, your players' families. The more people we hear from, the more information we have, the better the decisions we can make. And I'll just reiterate, thank you for coming out tonight. Your commitment is impressive and we hear you. See what we can do. All right, thanks everybody and have a great night. Please feel free to come up and talk to any one of us up here or reach out after the fact. We'd love to talk to you.